Hello and welcome to Freedom Through Astrology, where we're giving you the keys. And this is freedomthroughastrology.com. I'm your astrologer. My name is Donald Patak. We might be interrupted by kittens. Who knows? There's my contact information, standard YouTube copyright. No, my content may not be used to train AI LLMs unless I am paid first. A lot. Keys to the reading part one, because I do read astrology differently. I read what's called constellation-based astrology, sometimes called true sidereal astrology. It's astrology by the visible sky. In ancient times, astrologers were also astronomers. So they would be reading the planets in the constellations where they actually were. Around 200 AD, they fixed the signs to seasons. Unfortunately, fortunately, Mother Nature doesn't listen to mankind and does what she pleases. So they fix the signs. Tropical astrology fixed the signs to seasons and remains stuck in the Roman era. I read the sky as an astronomer would. So my stuff is the way I see things is going to be different. That's fine. And with reading the visible sky, there are 13 signs, not 12. Between Scorpio and Sagittarius is another sign called Ophiuchus. It's actually pretty large in the sky. And it's a sign of the wounded healer. The symbol is of a person holding a snake by the head and the tail. Snake in ancient times symbolizes knowledge. So when you hold it by the head and the tail, you're controlling or using knowledge. And according to the mythos, ideally you heal yourself so you can heal others with similar wounds. And in using the visible sky, I'm also using the natural size of the constellations. There are other astrologers who try to force the signs to be the same size. They're not. Virgo is huge at just under 50 degrees. Aries, Cancer, Libra, Scorpio, Ophiuchus, individually, they're less than 25 degrees each. The constellations vary in sizes. I respect and I follow that. And I do not use IAU boundaries. I use what is called an astrological midpoint system. IAU boundaries are arbitrarily drawn and can have stars from one constellation over the border and put into a different one. Athens Shementi noted this when he was zooming in on the border of Scorpio and Ophiuchus, and he saw that stars from Scorpio were actually being pushed into the constellation of Ophiuchus. He noted this throughout the zodiac belt. So what he did was he looked at the belt. What's the last bright star of constellation A? First bright star constellation B. What's the halfway point? And for the most part, it works fairly good. I use it. Keys to the reading part two. I interpret using evolutionary astrology, which says that the planets, the signs, etc., are teachers, and they're offering you lessons to learn. And with that comes freedom of choice. You can choose how you're going to work with these lessons. I paint an ideal and then what I call a shadow. So you got your choice, the high road or the low road. Go with it. This is the weekly edition, so these are universal lessons for everyone. So do have some compassion on your fellow ground pounders or earth travelers or whatever you want to call the people on this planet. The date and time is based on the Eastern U.S. time zone, as I do live outside of Buffalo, New York. That's a little better. And I'm operating within 1 degree of exact, because anything over that, I would be overwhelmed. If I'm overwhelmed, you're lost. No, 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 no. Who is this? Is this dusk or dawn? Oh, this is dusk. Here's our first little kitten commercial. I don't know if you can see them. And the software I'm using is Capricorn by Prometheus, soon to be re-released by the ISAA. It's a great software, honestly. How you doing? And I apologize for my nose and sinuses and my voice. I am getting over this virus that's going around the school that I work. So this is the weekly transits for the week of May 25th through 31st. Thankfully, it's not as crazy as last week. Last week was overwhelming with the number of transits and the way things happened. I actually have 3 readings for last week. This week, there's one. So we do have the sun in Taurus, still working in Taurus. Wonderful. The moon is actually fairly steady this week. For the most of the week, it will be in Virgo. It won't be until Thursday that it enters Libra and then Scorpio and then ends very late Sunday night on Ophiuchus. So emotionally, a nice steady week focused on self-improvement is the main theme. We do have the full moon in Scorpio on May 31st at 5:54 a.m. Eastern Time. So before most people are even going to be out of bed and haven't had their first cup of coffee, we'll be dealing with the full moon. Our active planets this week, I've got Sun and Mars and with an asterisk, and when I get to the chart and I show it to you, you'll understand why. But for this upcoming week, the new planet that's the most active and have an influence on the week will be the planet Mercury. We do have a sign change. Mercury does enter Gemini on Sunday morning, I believe. So we do not have any long transits, which are the outer planets aspecting the outer planets. Those tend to take weeks, at least a week or more to get through. So I call them longer transits. And we do have one retrograde planet, and that is Pluto. And let me swing this over here and get my doodle tool ready. And here you go. And this is our week. And this dotted line here, anything down this way is a new transit. Anything above is from last week. And as you can see, there's more happening last week than there is this week. But this also explains the asterisks. Let me just clear this out. And you can see we have 3 solar transits involved, 3 sun transits, plus 1 new one. Hence my giving you the sun with the asterisks. And on top of that, we do have 3 transits of Mars. And then we do have that Mercury with Mercury moving into Gemini. Just as an aside note, you can see both the sun, let me get the right ones here, and Mars are both transiting the nodes of the moon. So especially the first 2 days of the week, Monday and Tuesday, you're going to be feeling work on your destiny. The nodes of the moon are about your destiny. South node, how you hold yourself back. North node, your ultimate destiny and how you overcome the south node. Those will be playing as a theme this week. And I'm kind of a little out of order, but we do have the moon up here. The moon entered Virgo late Sunday night on the 24th. So we're really getting the full Virgo experience more or less this week. And as you can see, it goes into Thursday evening is when we make the transit to Libra. Saturday morning, we make the transit into Scorpio, and then Sunday evening, it moves into Ophiuchus. So the sun, or not the sun, the moon is very stable this week, which will be nice. And we do have that full moon in Scorpio very early Sunday morning. Put a little hash mark there. And as you can see, our new transits, there's only 3 of them. I'm going to spend more time talking about last week than this week. I'm almost inclined to say, if you want to know, go to last week's, but I'm not going to do that. There are 3 videos for last week, so if you did want to see that, we see what last week was about, and much more in-depth. Video 3 will cover all of this quite nicely in depth. So let's clear that out. Oh, and as you can see, I Did have my doctor's appointment. No longer wearing that big nasty thing on my hands. It's down to just that, but there's like a lot of scar tissue from that cat bite. You ever get bit by a cat, just go right to the emergency room. I get bit a lot and I soak it in Epsom salts, and usually that takes care of it. But okay. All right. It's not playing nice with me, so we're going to do it this way. And let's go here, here, here. And I'm just going to drag that out just a little bit bigger so that we can see it. I don't know why it did that. There we go. Much better. And okay, the way I'm going to cover this, in the interest of expediting things, I'm going to cover first the 3 solar transits, then the 3 Martian transits, and then I'm going to get into the new transits. So, starting with the sun in Taurus, it is sextiling Neptune in Pisces. So Sun in Taurus, our anchor point for these first 3 readings, is you being at peace with who you are at heart. So step 1, understand what your natal sun sign is. Whatever that is, the aim with Taurus is to find that is become more natural with it, and finds the ease and simplicity that comes from being that sun sign, and also finding the peace and strength that comes from being who you really are. So we have that. That's our anchor point. Part 1, we have, and this, I apologize, this is going to be a little sloppy. We have this sextile to Neptune in Pisces. Neptune is about spirituality. And in Pisces, I mean, that's just this very simple way of saying it. And in Pisces, Neptune in Pisces is saying, don't just do something, be there, be present, be aware. So as you're becoming more acclimated to who you really are at heart, it creates an interest in your becoming more present and more spiritually aware. Let me pull up my other notes here. Just want to see. Yeah, I'm good with that. Yeah, more present, more spiritually aware. So finding that peace, that strength and peace, finding that strength that comes from the inner peace, and see how that helps you becoming more interested in spirituality and being more present. Neptune in Pisces teaches you to be present. Now, the shadow of the sun in Taurus, the sun can get caught up in the false ego. Ideally, you're here to develop a healthy ego. The shadow of the sun is the false ego. It's whether it's burning too bright, that egotistical jerk. We all know people who are like that. You know, they walk into a room and everybody look at me or else, and they'll make a stain. Or it's that person that doesn't want to be seen at all. Either which way, it's the false ego. And in Taurus, it's either being lazy, looking for the easy way out, or it's being that bull in the china shop. And there's different ways you can play with that. And I know people who don't want to shine, who, and if you push them hard enough, boy, do they explode. But the sextile here creates a sense of nervousness. And Neptune in Pisces, the sextile is nervousness, jitters, and Neptune in Pisces is trying to hide away and escape the pain, live in his fantasy, numbing itself to reality. So that can get you this has you collapsing into the false ego and wanting to escape and live in an illusion. You know, this is you believing that you're somebody that you are not, either which way, whether it's over the top or trying to hide away. You're trying to believe that you are somebody that you are not, and living that illusion and doing whatever you can. Now, part 2. This is all kind of going on at the same time. we have the sun in a T-square. And I'll draw it like this, to the south node and the north node. Now, the key to a square is understanding that this is a challenge whose purpose is, or intention is, to strengthen you. You know, if you think about lifting weights, this is with Xena, something I did a reading for. It's like lifting weights, and these challenges, and it's how you become stronger by lifting heavier and heavier weights. So we do have it squaring the north node and the south node. I'm gonna read it. I'll read it north node then south node. Actually, I'm gonna read it south node then north node. South node is making you aware of how you, in Leo, South Node in Leo is making you aware, helping you to become more aware of how you hold yourself back with pointless, meaningless, and empty drama. So as you're becoming more aware of who you are at heart, really, you're being challenged to see the pointless drama that you've used in the creation of the false ego. And once you realize that, you're like, hey, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to overcome that and not put up that false drama anymore. How do you do that? That is the challenge of the north node. So ideally, you're moving from the south node to the north node. You're becoming aware of how you're holding yourself back with false drama. And the challenge is to become more of your authentic self and realizing your authentic purpose in life. The nodes of the moon in your birth chart do tell of your life's purpose, how you hold yourself back and how you overcome it. So you're becoming more aware of how you hold yourself back. I'll use myself as an example. I have my south node in Virgo, holding myself back with perfectionism and unrealistic expectations, and then creating the drama to fuel that. You know, I can't do that because everything's not right, not perfect. I don't have my I's dotted, T's crossed. My north node is in Pisces. So my North Node in Pisces, learning to be peace, be full of presence, find my own spirituality. So I get over that perfectionism by learning to accept my own authentic spirituality and learning what good enough is for me. And this is where I am, and that where I am right now is okay for me on my journey. I don't have to hold myself up to these unrealistic expectations. I can be my authentic self and who I am right now. So your North Node is helping you to, as you become at peace and find out and become more of who you are at heart, you're being challenged by the north node to make that destiny more authentic to yourself and overcome that south node and become more authentic and become more true to who you are. Last week there were a ton of aspects and transits that I read that other astrologers were not reading, because I do read the nodes of the moon and a lot of people blow them off. I think they're very powerful and very informative. So I always read them when they do come up. So there we go. So you have, as you become more at peace with who you are at heart, you're overcoming the desire to play up false drama, becoming more of who you really are and fulfilling your own personal destiny, and learning to be more present and aware. Now, the shadow is that false ego. And instead of the square being a strengthening challenge, it becomes a stumbling block. And you fall face down into the drama of the past and relive and rehashing the drama in the past. And instead of embracing your authentic destiny, you sell yourself out to other people's expectations, or you do whatever you can to push people's buttons and just get a reaction from them. And that creates an interest in living this idle fantasy that's just not real. So there we go. That's part one of last week, simply put. And part two, we have, this is not really the order that they happened in. So I'm going to do the order that they happened in, sort of. And again, we're going to go to the nodes of the moon with Mars in Aries. Now, this is a sextile to that. So this is a sextile to the north node. or a sense of interest. This is a trine to the south node. But then I'm just going to set this up for Pluto. Oh man, this becomes a square here. Oh, that's wild. Is that yeah, that is a semi-sextile. If I were really to dig into deeper transit, there's a whole lot more going on here. Holy cow. Okay, I'm beating around the bush. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to start with Mars in Aries, work the nodes of the moon, and then work in Pluto. So Mars in Aries is learning to have and be courageous and learning to assert yourself. Mars rules Aries. So this is kind of a homecoming for him. So this is learning to have courage, learning to be assertive, standing up for yourself. And the key to assertiveness is you feel understood, they feel respected. That's a key point to assertiveness. I want to bring that up. And we're going to, again, I'm going to start with the south node and move to the north node. And as you're learning courage, you become aware of how that has been messed up with the drama of the past. Again, for me, I'm going to use myself as an example. Again, my south nodes would be in Virgo, but I'm learning how I've held myself back with the pointless drama of perfectionism. So as I'm learning to have courage, I'm being supported by an awareness of how I've held myself back with pointless drama. And then the sextile is an interest. And as I become more aware of that, an interest is developed in fulfilling my North Node destiny in a way that's more authentic to who I am. So again, I said my North Node's in Pisces, so learning my own spirituality, becoming more authentic with my own spiritual journey and what it means, and giving up these unrealistic expectations and saying where I am and what I'm doing right now is okay if it's true to me. So that's that first part. That's the ideal there. And then we have Mars in a square to Pluto in Capricorn. Now, when I first started doing astrology, this was doom and this was gloom. The only thing that would make it worse is if we had Saturn thrown into the mix somehow. But with evolutionary astrology, you're learning to have courage. And how is that strengthening the work of transformation? But Pluto is retrograde. So you're reflecting on the work of transformation. As you're learning to have courage, that's strengthening you to reflect on the work of transformation. And it's also strengthening you to do the inner work of transformation and healing. So that's very, very potentially powerful experience there. Now, the shadow of Mars. Mars falls into fear, and that can come across as anger. That can come across as cowardice. So it's lashing out at people or trying to hide away. Trying the south node, as you fall into fear, you slip into the drama of the past and you rehash it and you relive it and just make it worse. And instead of fulfilling your destiny, you're either giving that power away and having other people define it, or you're doing stuff to push their buttons and provoke a reaction. So instead of fulfilling your destiny, you're holding yourself back from it and sabotaging it. And the square, instead of becoming a challenge that strengthens you, it becomes a stumbling block, a potential cause of failure. And as you're living in that deep-seated fear, has you stumbling into cynicism, nihilism, and feelings of worthlessness, isolation, and loneliness. And so instead of healing and transformation, this is actually deeper wounding in a way. Do I have anything else? Yeah. And that's that. And so that's Mars. That's the Mars transit from last week. Let me clear that out. Clear all drawings. And then we do have, I do want to cover this. We do have, where is it? The moon right here is in this very long transit in Virgo. So the moon in Virgo, where is that? The aim of Virgo is improvement, getting better. So you're looking for ways to improve yourself. And with the moon, this is emotional, your emotional skills. I would almost dare say emotional intelligence. How can you become more emotionally intelligent? And accept that responsibility. And be aware that when you're working with Virgo energy, teachers can arise to help you and want to help you and work with you to develop these skills. So be open to that. Now, the shadow here, the moon does get moody, and in Virgo is this perfectionism and unrealistic expectations. So that will fuel worry and pessimism. And instead of getting better, you get worse. So that's where we're starting with lunar energy. There we go. Clear all drawings. And, oops, gotta close this out. Let's go to, so on Monday, I'm gonna move this up to Tuesday so we get this exact. But as you can see, we're going to add the sun in Taurus in a trine to Pluto in Capricorn. Now, a trine is an easy energy. A little energy goes a long way. This can be a very positive energy. And again, as I said, with the sun in Taurus, you're learning to be peace with who you are at heart. And this is supporting the work of transformation. And like I said, with Pluto in Capricorn, it's a retrograde in Capricorn. You're reflecting on the work that you've done so far, and you're looking to do more. And this can also be internal work as well. So, so hold on a second. My brain just went blank. So yeah. So here we go. As you're finding that internal peace, how is this supporting you doing the inner work of healing and transformation? Yeah. Now the shadow here is falling into that false ego. And in Taurus, it's that either lazy or it's that bull in a china shop. And the trine is still an easy energy to work with, but this makes a big mess fast. Pluto in Capricorn falls into cynicism, falls into nihilism, falls into darkness. I dare say that. Where else do I have in my notes here? Yeah, cynicism, nihilism focuses on darkness, gets lost in loneliness and isolation. So as you're having that bull in a china shop moment, people will leave you alone for a long time. Or if you're just being a lazy bum, we're not going to help you. You can dig yourself out of that mess. So I have here collapsing and staying stuck in the false ego, leading to power trip cynicism and feeling lost in isolation and darkness. And yeah, even if people are being lazy and they're caught up in the false ego can get very easily caught up in a power trip. And we're going to clear, close. I do want to do those other drawings, but trying to do them in a timely manner with my hand messed up is just not being nice. And here we go. I'm going to jump this up to Wednesday at that point. Because this does start very early, Wednesday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday morning. This is actually a relatively quick transit, so to speak. And it is Venus squaring Saturn. So Venus in Gemini. Learning about relationships, learning to communicate in relationships. It can also be learning about your creativity in the arts, and that can be the physical arts, it can be music as well. But yeah, that's about building relationships, connecting with others on a deeper level. And here we have Saturn in Pisces. And if I were to just give you Saturn in Pisces in a nutshell, it's spiritual maturity. And here we have the square again. And as I said, the square is a challenge whose purpose is to strengthen you. Lousy looking square there. Not much better. But it's a challenge. So as you're learning about others and sharing with others, learning how to communicate, and that's listening as well as talking, or maybe it's writing, or however you communicate with others, how is this strengthening your spirituality? How is this deepening your spirituality as well and helping you understand it on a deeper level? I always put the word depth with Pisces because it's actually transcending. So it's understanding things from a higher level, deeper level, to potato, tomato, tomato. Let's call the whole thing off. So you see how learning or communicating with others can challenge and strengthen your spiritual growth and maturity. Maybe get in some good spiritual discussions, or maybe people share things that help you understand your own spirituality more. Or maybe you're learning about art, and this is helping. Art and music can be very spiritual experiences. One of the things I enjoy about going to, this is an aside, I enjoy going to the Orthodox Christian churches once in a while. Aside from the fact that the incense smells awesome and they're almost always doing the high service, meaning everything is sung. Um, the icon art is amazing. When you're looking at an icon, if it's properly made, and they won't let them out unless they are, no matter where you are, and you look at that icon, it's looking right back at you in the eye. It's rather an amazing experience. But how can relationships and creativity help strengthen your spirituality? There's your question. This shadow, Venus, slick and manipulative of others. You're trying to be slick and manipulative with others. Can also be lazy. With what? Words and communication. How are you trying to control others with communications? Square is a stumbling block. So instead of strengthening you, you're stumbling, you're falling, it becomes a crushing burden. And Saturn in Pisces uh, becomes it's self-created failure is based on fear. Saturn's worst thing about Saturn is it's a deep-seated fear. And in Pisces, fear is a fantasy-based fear. It's not even reality. It's your fantasies running away with you. So as you're trying to control others with words, you're stumbling into these fantasies that are pulling you away, these fantasies that are pulling you away from reality and digging you deeper into fear and a desire to control others. And it can lead and fuel failure. Okay, there we go there. And let me get to my lunar transit. We do have, yep, right there. I'm going to actually clear this off so we don't have that distraction. Right here, we do have late. It's actually late Thursday night that this happens, and that's the moon enters Libra. So your emotional self entering Libra. Time to take a pause, take a breath, calm down, find new perspective. Um, that was an interesting meow. Never heard that one before. So it's time to take a break, take a breath, and find perspective. Pause and look to see what's going on around you. And there's always the joke, heads or tails, when you flip a coin, heads or tails. Some joker's always going to call out sides. There's more than two sides to a story. Be open to new perspectives, new ways of seeing things. The shadow here is falling into indecision, and this can come across as being insecure. Friday. Okay, let's clear this out. So, yeah, close Friday and Saturday morning. It is on Saturday morning. I know it's there, but it is when I timed it out. When I did time it out, originally it was Saturday morning, but we're just going to use it here wherever it is. We do have the moon on Saturday entering Scorpio. So the moon in Scorpio, emotional depth. Be prepared to pull back the curtain and look more deeply into what you're feeling and why. So face deep personal truths about your feelings. Expect some intensity, potentially some powerful moods. I think Heraclitus says, I looked into myself. Well, you're looking into your emotional self here. The shadow here is falling into that perennial rotten mood that tends to complicate situations more than it needs to. Clear all drawing, close. Let's see. Hopefully this works. Here we go. And Sunday morning. This is Sunday morning, and this is the full moon as it actually happens. We have the sun opposite the moon. This is right around sunrise, actually. I'm not sure what time sunrise is. This is about the ascendant. So this is really close to sunrise. So for those of us in the northern hemisphere, this is happening at sunrise. For people in the southern hemisphere, this is happening at sunset. And yes, you can play that song from the Fiddler on the Roof if you wish to. But here you have emotional depth, reflecting on and balancing it against your sun in Taurus, finding a peace from being peace and strength from your being who you are at heart. So what do I have for my notes here? Reflect on and balance the need to face your deep personal truth and the desire for inner peace and calm. Know that finding the truth can bring peace and bring healing. So as the emotional self is reflecting on the ego and the ego is reflecting on the emotional self, you're facing these deep truths about what you're feeling and why you're feeling, and then how is that helping you to heal your core identity and understand your core identity better. And also understanding your feelings better and why you're feeling that way. The shadow here is that rotten mood, that moon in Scorpio, that rotten, foul, complicated mood. And instead of it balancing, this becomes a power struggle. The opposition is a power struggle. It's a tug of war. The sun in Taurus, we said that was the false ego, and it's either being lazy or it's that proverbial bull in a china shop. And if it's a rotten mood with a bull in the china shop, that type of power struggle can be very damaging. And if it's being a lazy bum and it's I wanted a day off and there's nothing, even though there's stuff that has to be done, nothing you can do about it. My notes here say be careful falling into a rotten mood, getting stuck in an egotistical rut that has you taking your anger and feelings out on others. You can also take it out on yourself as well. Let's close that out. Clear all drawings, close, minimize. Let's go back to here. And I have to click on that again. And we start with that. Secondly, on Sunday morning, there it is. Close enough for government work. It starts in Taurus, but it's not even worth mentioning. I mean, learning peace, but then you're turning into Mercury and Gemini. So I'm going to cover Mercury and Gemini, and then I'm going to cover the transit. So Mercury in Gemini, it's time to update your skills in learning and communication. And this is listening and paying attention. It can be speaking, it can be writing. So it's you learning to update your skills in various ways. And and learn to pay attention more closely to the world around you. Actively engage in learning through reading, listening, watching out what's going on. Mercury and Gemini, it is the art of paying attention and paying attention on a very deep, I would say a deep level, but paying attention to notice what's really going on and be able to learn from it and communicate and work within it. The shadow here, Mercury rules Gemini, so it's kind of a homecoming here in a way. But the flip side of the coin is this is the mind out of control, not paying attention. Somebody's talking and you're either ignoring them or thinking about how you're going to answer them. So you're not even in the moment with them because you're worried about what you're going to say. And so the mind is kind of out of control here. So the mind is out of control. It's lost. It's scatterbrained. So my notes here say, be careful of getting lost in your own head and worrying about everything. Watch out for idle chatter or activity that has you repeating what you already know or believe in endlessly. So this, instead of learning something new, you're rehashing what you already know and just talking more and more about it. Yeah, okay, great. You know 2 + 2 is 4. Big deal. You know, you've told us this 10,000 times. We've heard this story before. How many times are we going to hear it again? So this is Mercury getting lost in its own words. And Mercury in Gemini is in a sextile to Chiron in Pisces. Oops, wrong one. Let's do this again. Chiron, Pisces. So Mercury in Gemini, sextile, and I'll draw from Chiron. And a sextile is a sense of interest or excitement. So as you're learning that, you're paying attention, you're learning this new information, it's creating this interest in healing and spiritual healing, rising above the wound, seeing it from a new perspective, a different perspective, healing it, and then being able to release the wound. And then Chiron, which is also the ruler of Ophiuchus, since you've learned to heal yourself, ideally you'll be able to heal others with similar wounds. And I'm looking how close Chiron is there to Aries. Pretty soon we're going to have Chiron in Aries, which is going to be pretty powerful. So yeah, let's see. Yeah, learning new insights and how to share them, create interest in healing, releasing spiritual wounds, also understanding them from a higher perspective. And this enables you to heal, and that can enable you to heal and release them. The shadow here is getting caught in that mental rut. And it creates a sense of nervousness. And instead of healing, it's refusing to heal, getting caught more up in the wound. And you can wound yourself more deeply, or you can use the knowledge that you're gaining to wound others. And my other second note here is mental ruts can get you stuck in idle fantasies, and those can be deeply wounding. And that's where we end the week. Close that out, close this, minimize, go here, yada, yada, yada. Current slide. And that's our forecast. A lot of stuff was from last week's Saturday or last Saturday and Sunday, the 24th and 25th. But there you go. Do follow me. I am on Facebook, Instagram. The video is on YouTube. On Facebook and Instagram, I do post daily deep dives, which takes these transits and explores them a little bit more deeply. I'm also on the digital soul space. These 3 companies are making billions of dollars off your data and not sharing much, if any, of it with you. Digital Soul Space is hosted on the Mighty Networks. Your data is yours to control and how it gets used. I call it the spiritual safe space of the internet. We got 4 great moderators that keep trolls off. And if somebody does something or says something that's inappropriate, they are quick to carefully address it and make sure that the situation's taken care of and addressed. And if there are people who are not going to follow the rules, they're politely dismissed. But it's a great place to go and hang out and explore your spirituality and not have to worry about your data being mined to sell you stuff. I do astrology on there, but there's also tarot, a wide variety of oracle decks, crystals. People talk a wide variety of different spiritual practices. I mean, I can't even list them off. They're so amazing. People talk about herbal healing, essential oils. Oh gosh, mediumship. Yeah, just this afternoon was really cool. Michael Robert, who's one of the moderators, and he's the guy who does all the programming on the site, did free readings. He posted free. He posted if you're on and you wanted a free Oracle deck reading, he did that, which is wonderful. There's a free version of Digital Soul Space and a paid version. These other ones, you think they're free, but not. You're paying for them with your data. And like I said, these guys are making billions off of it. Digital Soul Space, there's a free version which gets you limited access, and there's a paid version. 100% of the money that goes into the paid version goes to paying for the website, paying for the software, paying for the hosting, all the programming, the moderators, all do it volunteer. Michael Robert does all the hosting work and all the programming and all the coding, making sure everything's done, all the technical stuff. He does it for free as a labor of love. It's an amazing place. I do readings. If you want to see how your chart changes from tropical to true sidereal, order the quick 6 reading, 6 key points off of your chart. And I read birth and natal charts, and in evolutionary astrology, it's not who you are, it's who you came to become. You are not your chart. It's like Stephen Covey says, begin with the end in mind. It's your end all goal. It's your birth contract. I do also a karmic or a past life reading, whether you're a one and done or a past life. This helps you understand a karmic wound that you have, what it is, how it could have been created, and then more importantly, or just as important, how you heal and release it. I do horoscopes 1 year, which is any 12 months, any 3 months in a row, or any 1 month, which can be new moon to new moon, or the first month to the first of the month to the end of the month. And I do have some, hold on, excuse me, I do have packages which combine these readings in different levels. So do like, follow, share. If you go to my website, you get a pop-up, enter an email address, you get my newsletter. It's a free newsletter, comes out once a week, gives you all this information and additional insights that you don't, and discounts that you don't get anywhere else. So like, follow, share, sign up for the newsletter. And thank you very much. Remember, in the visible sky, your life changes. Have the best week possible, and thank you very much.